You're listening to Old Lang Schmooze, the Edinburgh Jewish Cultural Centre podcast. I'm David Neville. It's August 2025 and the biggest arts festival in the world has just begun in Edinburgh.
I'm Jess Robinson and my new show is Your Song, Elton Reimagined.
My name is Bennett Arron and my show is called I Regret This Already.
My name is Daniel Cainer and my show is called Topical.
My name is Gili Malinsky and my show is Will You Be Purring the Entire Flight?
I'm Nick Cassenbaum and my show is Rebellion After the B'nai Mitzvahs.
Hi, my name's Phil Alexander and I'm playing with Triptych at the Edinburgh International Festival.
The Edinburgh Jewish Cultural Centre, in partnership with the Edinburgh Hebrew Congregation, presents a festival open day every year. The open day is a showcase for productions with a Jewish cultural interest. In this podcast, you hear about some of the shows appearing in the festivals and at the open day.
My name is Gili Malinsky and my show is Will You Be Purring the Entire Flight? The show is about what happens when a secular Jewish woman gets stuck sitting next to a Hasidic woman on a 6-hour flight from New York to London. They come in with a lot of preconceived notions, a lot of judgments toward each other, but because they're stuck in this small space, economy level airplane seats, they each have like not even, half a meter to themselves. They end up having to sort of hash it out. So they end up talking about what does Jewish mean to them? What does being Jewish mean to them? What does being a woman mean to them? Does God exist? Hopefully there's a lot of humor. They can both agree that Ham and Tashin are the best cookie of all time. And then there's hopefully some growth. And at the end, they come to some conclusions.
So where did the idea from this play come from?
The idea came from an event that happened to me. I mean, basically the same thing. I'll let you guess which one on the spectrum I was, the secular or the Hasidic woman. It's the secular woman. I was actually on a flight from New York to Tel Aviv. So it was 10 hours. And I sat down, from my side of the Jewish spectrum with a lot of preconceived notions, a lot of judgments toward the ultra-Orthodox, the Hasidic. And this woman sits next to me and I was like, oh my God, you have to be kidding me. Like 10 hours next to this person, like she's going to be talking loudly. She's going to be praying the entire flight. She's going to be, not respecting my personal space. And then we ended up having like the loveliest, most open conversation I think I've ever had with a stranger, or maybe even with anyone. And it was just a moment of learning for me, that I should probably not judge people at all and definitely not judge them so harshly. And the conversation, because for the ultra-Orthodox, the Hasidic life is very meaningful, life is very intentional. The conversation was also like quite deep very quickly. For them, eating is a sort of spiritual act, right? You're saying a blessing before you eat certain things, before you drink certain things, like everything is surrounded by this halo of gratitude. For them, of course, it's gratitude to God, but the point is nothing is to be taken for granted. And I just thought like, what a fun idea for a show. So I sat down, wrote all the topics of conversation that she and I had, and then started cranking out this play. And that was in September of 2022, and have just kind of been working on it since, done, various table reads, and we did a small production here in New York and have just been workshopping it to make it be the best version of this idea possible.
So you're bringing the play to Edinburgh. Why did you decide to bring it to Edinburgh, and what are the challenges?
I think logistically, it's a pretty straightforward play because you have these two actors, these two characters just kind of sitting next to each other the whole time. They bounce in and out once in a while, and then you have a flight attendant who comes in and out and also says all sorts of funny things to them. But it's very straightforward. And I think because it's simple, hopefully still very good and very funny, but putting it on is not logistically a nightmare or too complicated. It felt like a good show to bring abroad. It felt like a lighter lift, I would say, a lower lift, I think, than other productions that might be more complicated, maybe have more props, more scenes. And why? I mean, Fringe is bucket list for me. Like, I think for a lot of us, it's, if you're in theater, getting to perform on a Fringe stage is like one of the coolest things you can do. So definitely wanted to bring something here, and this just felt like the right project.
Last year, a new play by Nick Cassenbaum took the Fringe by storm. It was called Revenge After the Lavoya. It won a Fringe first and played to packed houses. Now Nick is working on a new play, and he's only at the Fringe for one night.
That's right. We're coming up for just one night, and it is a kind of like a script in hand, rehearsed reading of, I've not even finished the whole play, of maybe like half an hour, 40 minutes of a new play I'm working on called Rebellion After the B'nai Mitzvahs, which is kind of a follow-up in spirit to Revenge After the Lavoya, but features a whole host of different characters. It's centered around a Jewish youth movement summer camp in 2017, and some of the teenagers that are on the camp and some of the teenagers that are leading the camp. And kind of what I wanted to do is mix that idea of the Jewish summer camp with the kind of stylistic feel and some of like the hyperbole and exaggeration that goes on in some of like the American summer camp movies and some of like the John Hughes films, like, Home Alone and things like that. It's going to be I hope it's going to be funny. And I've based it on a lot of interviews that I've been doing over the past few months with people that went on a variety of Jewish youth movements from like the 90s to the 2000s. Yeah.
Yeah, when I first saw the description, I wondered if it was based on your own experience when you were at the camp, but I suspect that might not have been in 2017.
No, I was on camp, I think, in 2003. 2002, but it certainly is based on some of the experiences I had on summer camp. And what I found interesting is talking to people, is that some of the things that I remember happening, so for instance, the reenactment of the Raid of Entebbe, which was done to me when I was at camp, seems to have been a really common thing that's happened to many people on these summer camps. So there are certain things that reoccurred at all these camps, but certainly there's a lot of my own experience in it as well. Like the central character is someone from Essex, and then there's their experience of first meeting someone from Northwest London, so that's very much in there. But yeah, there's a lot of autobiography in there. Yeah.
So, I mean, last year you had a great success and richly deserved with Revenge After the Lavoya. Is it difficult to follow that sort of thing up?
Well,
or do you not think like that?
I mean, there is part of me that does feel like that, because I feel like that show was a bit of a surprise for people. I think it was so different from, my first major work, which was Bubble Schmeißlist, and which was 10 years ago now. And so different from my other work. I think people weren't necessarily, when that kind of hit the stage, people were a bit surprised, not knowing what to expect. So I guess there is the kind of expectation that I'm rubbing up against. But at the same time, I feel like that show has given me a real confidence in my writing style that I feel like happier and freer to really lean into. So it's kind of both things. It's both like a slight worry that I'm not going to live up to it, but also I feel like it's given me a lot of confidence to do what I'm doing.
I think with Revenge, you tackled. I think you gave us an insight into what it feels to be young and Jewish without, making it a lecture. You made it really entertaining and, a lot to think about afterwards.
Oh, good. Well, I think this one hopefully is going to tell what it's like to be even younger and Jewish.
Well, maybe in future summer camps, people will be playing Revenge After the Lavoya.
Yeah, maybe.
And so future plans for Revenge after the boy?
For Revenge, we are doing for that show. We've got planned a tour of the southeast. We're doing like one-nighters in small theatres across the southeast, and then we're doing a 6-week run at the Soho Theatre over December and January, which is very exciting. And then after that, I don't know. And I hope by this time next year, Rebellion after the Belay Mitzvahs will also be on somewhere. But we don't no exact plans for that just yet.
So you might bring the full production back to the Fringe.
Maybe if things turn out right, if things go our way, quite possibly.
Well, I hope they do. Thanks very much. Yeah, that's lovely.
My pleasure.
Phil Alexander is one of Scotland's busiest musicians. He's an academic, he plays piano, accordion, he's played with many singers and many different groups. I caught up with him to find out what he's up to this year, this August, and in the festival and the Fringe. Hi Phil, good to catch up with you.
Hiya, David.
So this August, I believe you're in the International Festival.
Yes, that's right. I'm playing with my trio, fairly new trio called Triptych.
And you can tell us about Triptych because, I know about the Firelight Trio, and obviously lots of people would know about Maushi's Bagel, but this is a new venture.
Yeah, it's a new venture with old friends. I was part of a band, or ran a band called Moishes Bagel for many years. Had lots of fun with that, and we stopped doing it. We kind of parted as friends about 3 years ago. But three of us, that's me and the bass player Mario Caribe and the fiddle player Greg Lawson, really had a desire to still carry on playing together. And so we just kind of started to get together to jam and play on some new material fairly informally. And then we were offered a gig by Soundhouse, which is Jane Ann Purdy and Douglas Robertson, who were running, a couple of years ago, were running a series of shows at the Rose Theatre at the West End of Princes Street. And they'd taken over the theatre for the whole of the Fringe, and they were putting on some of their favourite musicians. So they gave us a gig, and that kind of forced us to get our act together a bit. We didn't really even have a name at that point, but the gig went down really well. And so the three of us decided to make that a little bit more of a permanent thing. So it's a really nice chance to be playing with two musicians who I know very well and I've played with for many, many years, but working on a slightly different kind of sound world and a different way of playing together than with Moishes Bagel. A little bit more freedom, I would say, as well.
And what sort of music can we expect to hear?
We play pretty much the music that we love. So there is a fair dose of the kind of Eastern European klezmerish sound that was at least part of Moishes Bagel. Mario brings his own Brazilian and South American repertoire to it. So we've got some beautiful Brazilian lullabies and chorinhos, and we've also got a very nice rumba, Spanish and South American rumba that he's written. There's a lot of original music. We also stray slightly into jazz and some elements of folk music from Europe more generally, so from Eastern Europe, but also from the British Isles and from mainland Europe, Western Europe as well.
I love the expression, you slightly drift into jazz.
Well, I wouldn't want to scare anybody off. Left to our own devices, Mario and I would drift quite heavily into jazz, but for this project, we're just lightly grazing the edges of it.
Yes. And where is this on? Where can people?
The gig is on at the Hub at the top of the Royal Mile, and it's part of the International Festival Series, curated, I think, by Nicola Benedetti. She's been involved in kind of putting that bit together.
And am I right in thinking there's only one performance?
It is only one performance, yes, on the 11th of August. So the performance is a nice opportunity for us because we have recently recorded an album. We recorded that it's fairly hot off the press, about 4 weeks ago, and it's just being mixed and mastered and pressed right now as we speak. And this gig will be the, I don't know whether it'll be the official launch, but it will certainly be the unofficial launch of our album as well. So it's a nice moment for the band, you know, having this good, exciting gig in a lovely venue as part of a great festival, and then also being able to launch our new album as well.
What's the album called?
It's called the Jackdaw Sessions, and there is a reason for that. We recorded it up at Teapot Studios in Perthshire, which is a great kind of sanctuary for musicians in the middle of nowhere to go and stay and play. And there's quite a lot of wildlife up in that part of the world, and there's a few jackdaws that seem to like to frequent Robin Evans's kitchen. He's the engineer who runs that studio, and so there's often jackdaws to be found kind of poking around on the kitchen table and things. So we thought the Jackdaw Sessions would be a nice name.
Lovely. So I know that sometimes, and maybe this year as well, you are also the piano player for other productions.
Yeah, I'm not doing so much of that this year. I've got a couple of shows with the lovely jazz singer Nikki King at the Spiegel Tent. So that's so far what I'm doing. But in the past, yes, I've done quite a lot of that. I've done runs for Stuart Darietta doing his Leonard Cohen show, and for Rain Pryor, Richard Pryor's daughter, who was doing a run of jazz songs, and actually a very interesting show that, talking about her own mix of African American and Jewish heritage, which kind of came into the repertoire choices a little bit, but certainly in her onstage banter as well. So yes, I've done a fair bit of that, and it's always a nice, enjoyable, slightly kind of edge of your seat experience.
Is that because you're sort of dashing from venue to venue?
You're dashing from venue to venue, often with people who might have just arrived in town the day before, and then you're straight into the first show. So there's quite a lot of because not exactly making it up as you go along, but definitely making it work as you go along, which, I mean, you'll know that from theatre as well, David. There's often, the first couple of nights are where you sort everything out, but it's a really enjoyable experience, I think, to do that as well.
Yeah. And can you tell us which show you're playing for this year?
Yeah, this year I'm playing for Nikki King, and she's at the Spiegel Tent in George Square on the 18th of August. And that's a lovely collection of songs that she's written. Nikki is a very accomplished jazz singer, and this is a collection of songs she's written about time, and specifically about time and her relationship with her late mother. So it's a very moving and kind of quite empowering set of material. I would highly recommend it.
Sounds like a great evening.
Yeah,
Thank you very much, Phil.
that's my pleasure.
Bennett Arron is an actor, a writer and a comedian. He started his stand-up career in 1997 when he was the joint runner-up with Peter Kay in the BBC New Comedy Awards. This year, Bennett is back at the Fringe with an all-new show. So Bennett, it's good to speak to you. I hear you've got a new show at this year's Fringe. Can you tell us all about it?
I was meant to have done a show last year, but unfortunately, a few things happened. I was ill, and that's mainly what this show is about. It's about dementia, depression, and death, all the usual comedy subjects. But I promise it is a comedy. I have managed to find comedy in it. I hope so. Anyway, so far, the previews have shown that it is funny. But it's about that. It's called I Regret This Already, and it's about things that I regret doing and things that I regret that have happened in my life. And I talk about the fact that my dad had dementia, sadly, and what I've learned about that. And I talk about the fact that I had depression for the first time in my life at this age, which I've never, ever had before, and what caused that to happen, the things that happened that built up to it, including my dad's dementia, and my mum had passed away, and I encountered a barrage of anti-Semitism, which I wasn't ever expecting, and I was on medication, and all these things sort of accumulated and ended up with me having this awful depression, which, as I said, I've never had before, and please God, never hope to have again. So I talk about that, and I talk about my childhood, about coming from a small community in South Wales. When I say small, mine was the only Jewish family there. I talk about that briefly, and I talk about being bullied in school, which I know a lot of people were bullied, but I talk about how I didn't realize how much bullying had really affected me and still does to this day. So those are sort of the things that I chat about, how events in our past affect our lives much later, that we don't even realize that that's going to happen.
So, Bennett, I mean, I've seen your previous shows, which I've greatly enjoyed, and they are a mixture of comedy, but also exploring different topics and issues. But what you've described are, some really tough life events. Is it very hard as a comic to think, well, I'm going to make a show out of that and amuse people or entertain them as well?
Yeah, it's funny. I wasn't really going to do another show. I always thought I wouldn't do a show unless I had something to say. And it was actually my wife who's always sort of been against me doing the Edinburgh Festival, because she knows how stressed, I guess, I get with it, and anxious, which I do. But she said to me, you have to write about this, because for cathartic reasons, and also because something good has to come from it. And that's what made me want to write about it, really. And I also talk about the fact that, which I have mentioned on stage before many times, that 28 years ago, I became the first major victim of identity theft and lost everything. And my wife and I became pregnant, and my wife became pregnant, and she and I became penniless and homeless when she was pregnant, and had to move in with my family, my parents. And even though I've spoken about it before and done a show about it, a documentary about it, I hadn't realized the impact that had on my life. It's just something that happened, and I said, I've done shows, made documentaries, toured the world talking about the subject, but it's affected me more than I realized. So I talk about that as well. So I felt I had something to say, which is why I wanted to do it this year.
Well, I tell you what, I look forward to seeing your show. I've enjoyed all your other shows, and I'm sure I'm going to enjoy this one. So thanks very much, Bennett.
Thank you, David. See you there.
The few days before the Fringe starts are amongst the busiest for any production and for the artists involved. They have to get into their theatre, try all the tech to make sure it works, and there's not much time because there's so many shows. So I was lucky enough to have a chat with Jess Robinson. Hi Jess, how are you?
Hello, how are you?
I'm good. I expect you're busy in rehearsals.
We had our tech rehearsal last night to make sure all the sound and the lights were working. We're in the Piccolo tent in the Assembly Gardens, and it's like the small circus tent. It's so beautiful and so atmospheric in there. They've got these new red velvet curtains and it's all wooden, little glowy lights on the walls, and they've even put padding on the seats now. So it's not as uncomfortable. So that's always good.
Luxury. So
Absolutely.
Tell us what this new show is all about.
Well, I wanted to choose just one artist's songs because I'm a singing impressionist, and I've done Dead Ringers, and I'm an impressionist and a singer. I wanted to choose one artist's songs which I could reinterpret in all of my different singing impressions that I do. And I thought it would be fun to choose a male artist and sort of reframe his songs from a female perspective. And I was looking at lots and lots of different artists. I touched on the Beatles, but they're very expensive, and the Stones and Sting, who I think I'm probably the only person that likes. But Elton John popped into my mind. And when I looked at his songs, I realized that they have sort of been with me since childhood. They've sort of just been there throughout my life, sometimes without me even noticing. And it was surprising to actually sit down and just look at how very prolific he is. The fact that he's still going, which is incredible. He's not given up. And I really respect that grit and determination to just keep going. That's something in our family that we really, try and do ourselves. And then I remembered The Lion King and Billy Elliot and all of the other musicals and things that he's written, and it had to be him.
Can you remember the first Elton John song that made you aware of him and perhaps fell in love with his music?
Oh, that is a really good question. Do you know what? It was probably in a dance class. I'm terrible at dancing. When I was a kid, and we did a dance to Crocodile Rock. And as a child, the da, 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 was really catchy and really joyful and fun. I think he doesn't like that song himself very much anymore.
Oh, really?
And then when I was maybe in my 20s or something, Ellie Goulding did a cover of your song. So I sort of accessed him that way. But I think in the year I was born, I think I'm Still Standing was in the charts.
Oh, right.
Just looking back
Fantastic.
at that.
But you're using another one of your pieces of magic in this show, which is you're not just singing these songs as yourself. You're singing them as some other people. Can you tell us about that?
Yeah, we've got beautiful Amy Winehouse doing A Tiny Dancer in a really sort of beautiful Amy Winehouse style, so quite bluesy, and it's quite moving, that bit. We've also got Billie Eilish doing a mashup, really, of Candle in the Wind, because it's an interesting sentiment. We've sort of mashed it up with the Barbie song. I don't know if you know What Was I Made For, but it seems to echo the same sentiment of the whole world knowing you, but not really knowing the real you, and sort of exploiting you, which was really interesting. And then there are some really joyful, silly things like Kate Bush doing Yellow Brick Road, which is so fabulous in a sort of Wuthering Heights style. Barbara Streisand singing I'm Still Standing a la Yentl and Don't Rain on My Parade. It is such an explosive finale. It's just it's so exciting. And
I mean, I'm Still Standing sounds perfect for Barbara Streisand.
Yeah,
it really does. Hard duets and
yeah, absolutely. So it's been so much fun, and we've got Britney doing Bennett and the Jets, and Billie Holiday doing And I think it's gonna be a long, long time till touchdown brings me round again to find I'm not the man they think he is at home. Oh no, he is a rocket man. Yeah, it's great fun.
So as usual, the great thing is with your show, you see a huge company of people all performed by one person.
Great value for money.
Exactly. And tell me who you're collaborating with the show this time.
Yeah, so I have my musical collaborator is Matthew Floyd Jones. And if any Fringe fans remember Frisky and Manish, he was one half of Frisky, he was Manish. But he also wrote the music to Kathy and Stella Solve a Murder, which was a huge Edinburgh hit and had a West End transfer last year. So it's I've managed to get the cream of the crop collaborating with me, and it's so much fun, and it's really I feel like it's really elevated what I can do, because it's not only great spot on impressions, but the musical arrangements are so true to those artists, and so he's just done such a clever job while honoring Elton. It's just a big celebration of Elton and female voices, really.
Lovely. With thousands of shows to go to see, there is something for everyone at the Fringe. And this year, there's loads of shows with Jewish content and Jewish themes. And one of our favourite singer-songwriters is Daniel Cainer. So, hi Daniel, it's great to be talking to you as we approach another Fringe festival. And you've got a new show, I believe.
Well, yes, it's a new show, and it has got a lot of new material in it. But I'm reminded of one of the finest moments in light entertainment comedy that's ever taken place in the last century, which is where Andrei Previn says to Eric Morecambe when he's trying to playing the pianist, playing the Grieg's piano concerto, and he says, "You're playing all the wrong notes." And Eric Morecambe says, "No, I'm playing the right notes, just not necessarily in the right order." And so there will be some songs that you might have heard before, but they will be in a different order. So that's where that tenuous comparison comes in. But actually, I would say it is 80% probably new stuff that has not been heard before.
And subject matter, what are you dealing with in your songs?
Well, I'm dealing with just this. I've always been a topical songwriter. We are talking today just after the death of Tom Lehrer, who's probably one of the greatest and most well-known topical songwriters of his day. And funnily enough, I used to do a very similar thing to him, which is he used to do a topical song every week in a American show. It was based on a British one here in the 1960s. That was the week that was. But I used to do a very similar thing on the radio and on the telly some years ago. Every week I'd write a piece about what might be a pertinent in the news, and I'd go on the radio live and perform it. And it was a rather stressful and strenuous activity. But I was looking back through the archive and thinking, is there anything that I could reuse on the subject of being topical? And there are a couple of things which I am digging out from the past for that, and also just looking at things that I think are important at the moment. So normally my topic has been, Jewish life, Jewish culture, Jewish experience, my world, and it's still that. It's just that I've taken the focus off the Jewish stuff a little bit, although it's still obviously that is the flavour, and that is because that's me. And I'm looking at different things. I'm dealing with, religion, politics, death and taxes, all the things that we all have to deal with. But the emphasis is slightly different.
Sounds good. That's something old, something new. Sounds great.
And actually something borrowed, which is unusual. I'm actually doing a cover of somebody else's song. How about that? That's worth coming out for, isn't it?
So, Daniel, you've been coming to the Fringe for quite a long time now. I think the first time was in 2005. Is that correct?
2005. That's right. It was my first Edinburgh, your first Edinburgh Open Day at the Shul. I was in Edinburgh with the show. First, I'd never even been to the festival before, so I was taken by surprise. I hadn't even been just to visit by what it was, and then it was shockingly sort of massive, 2,500 shows then. I mean, now it's 3.5, isn't it? Maybe it was around 2,000, whatever. Anyway, I was struggling a little bit with dealing with that and the audience and getting an audience and all this. My show was called Surbiton Washarama and Other Stories. So I'd just written this song, Surbiton Washarama, which had became my calling card for quite a long time, about my parents' divorce and this, that, and the other. And it's a very Hamish thing. I'd never sung it in a synagogue before. And so I was a bit apprehensive as to how this would go down, particularly in an Orthodox shul, because it's a little, what should we say, saucy.
Saucy. It's a good word.
So I went on, played it in the shul hall, and it went down an absolute storm, and it was like one of the best gigs I've ever done, and very gratifying. And ever since, the Festival Open Day has been the highlight of my Fringe.
Well, that's really nice to hear, and I think the people at the open day look forward to seeing you, with something new, and we love it, and what I've seen over the years is how you've brought in other stories, other songs that are based on your own family history and other events, which is really nice.
Well, that's what I have been trying to do. I think back then, I wasn't quite sure really who I was and why I was doing this, and it was very around about the same time that I kind of really sort of became much more comfortable in my skin as this kind of professional Jewish performer, doing something a little bit unusual. I mean, it's not like Catskills comedies, it's not stand-up, it's not, and it's actually, with serious intent, actually, just something that tries to capture the feeling of what it's like to be Jewish, in all its incarnations in this particular time. And of course, now the times have changed somewhat, and this year particularly, well, certainly post October the 7th, the atmosphere generally has changed. It's become much more difficult to be publicly Jewish for all the obvious reasons, which we don't need to go into in this podcast right now. But it's been very challenging, and I will be addressing this somewhat in the show, but not. I just don't know if you go into this in too much. Nobody wins in this. Nobody can find the right angle. Nobody can, whatever you say. It's too complicated actually to be poetic about. And even this week, as we speak, there have been some huge issues about Edinburgh and about Jewish shows being cancelled and what have you. And so, we approach this with a little bit of trepidation. But I think in a way you can't do anything more than just be proud of what you are, and that's what I should be doing with this.
In 1947, following the trauma of the Second World War, Rudolf Bing, a Jewish refugee and a cultural pioneer, along with civic leaders and other Jewish refugees, began the Edinburgh Festival. The idea was that after all the pain of war, a festival where people could enjoy the performing arts might bring people and nations together. So it's ironic that this year, 2025, so just a few days before the Fringe, 2 Jewish performers were told that the venues that they booked could no longer host their shows. And over the past couple of years, Jewish artists and performers have once again faced anti-Semitism. Well, let's hope that this year's festival and Fringe do what the festival was intended to do in the beginning, bring people and nations together. Enjoy the festival and the Fringe. You've been listening to Old Lang Schmooze, the Edinburgh Jewish Cultural Centre podcast. Music in the podcast was by Phil Alexander and Triptych.